Hello everyone, let's talk about this question today. It's called erasing zeros. We're said that we're given a string, each character is either 0 or 1. We want all of the 1 in the string to be in a contiguous sub-segment. For example, like these, where all the 1s are together, or in this case, where all the 1s are together. Anything like this, where the 1s are not together and they're separated by 1 0 or multiple zeros, we want to find out how many zeros we have to remove or erase so we can make sure all of the 1s are in a contiguous subsegment. It says you may erase some or possibly 0 zeros from the string, and we have to find the minimum number of zeros that we have to erase. Our inputs are, the first line is one integer t, which is a number of test cases, and then for each t we have a test case or a string that we have been given. The best way to explain how to solve this question would be through examples, so let's look at that. Let's start off with the first example here. It's just 1001. Directly from our eyes we can see that we would have to erase 2 zeros, these two, to get a contiguous subsegment of 1s. Now let's see how we can do this. Our job can be separated into two parts. One, finding the last possible 1 on the left side of the zeros and the first possible 1 on the right side of the zeros. In this case, when we go through the string, we'll see that, oh, we see the first one here. Great. Now let's count the number of zeros in between this one and this one, and that is how we'll get our answer. But that is a relatively difficult solution in code, so let me explain how I did it. In this case, we can see that our answer would be 1, 2, 3 because these 3 zeros are separating the ones on the left and the ones on the right. So our answer is 3. But let's see how we can solve this. Now we don't care about any of the zeros that are happening before the occurrence of 1s, so we will, let's say, disregard the zeros before the first one. Once we've done that, we will now count all the zeros that happen after that point. So when we're going through the string, we'll look at the first element and say, oh, that's 1, we don't care about it. And then we'll go to the second element, we'll see that we have a 1. After this point, we will count all the zeros that occur in the sequence. So when we go through the remaining string, we'll see that we have 1 0 here, 2 0, 3 0. Then we go on and we get the 4th 0 and the 5th 0. So count all zeros after the first one. Now the neat part is we don't actually care about the zeros on the very right as well. All we care about are these zeros that are in the middle of these two. So we will disregard these as well, and we will find the number of trailing zeros. In this case, that would be equal to 2 because we have 2 trailing zeros. And from this, where we are counting all of the zeros after the first occurrence of the first one, we found that we have 5 zeros. After that, we will simply do zeros total that we found in this part minus trailing zeros. This would give us 5 minus 2, which is 3, which is the answer that we were expecting as well. You can do the same thing here. I just exaggerated the zeros on both sides to put across the point that we don't really care about the zeros that occur on the left or on the right. We only care about the one that's in the middle. For example 3, our answer will be 1 because of this 0. Now let's see how that looks in the code. I will start off with my template here. We will input test cases, and while test cases is positive, we will input our string. Now here we'll make two variables. The first one is a boolean and I'm calling it scene1. Currently this is false, and this will turn true when we find our first one. Next we will initialize our count zeros, or the total zeros that we were counting earlier, and we'll assign it to 0 right now. Then we'll run through our string for character C and S. We will see if C is 1. If it is 1, we will update scene1 to be true, and this never turns false, so that's fine. If that is not the case, else if scene1 is true and C equals 0, increase the count 0 by 1. With this thing, we are simply increasing the number of zeros that we have in total, so that we can or subtract it later with the trailing zeros. Once all of that is done, we have to take care of one edge case. If we don't see a 1, so if not scene 1, we'll just see out 0, because we haven't seen 1, so we can't really do anything with that string. But in the situations where that is not the case, we will initialize our variable called trailing zeros, and then we'll run through our string from right to left, so from the end towards the start. We will say integer I equals s dot length minus 1 while I is greater than or equal to 0, and s of I equals the character 0. We'll continue decreasing it because we're starting from the right going to the left. In this case, we will update the value of trailing zeros. Once we've done that, we have our counter total zeros that we had minus our trailing zeros. All we have to do is see out the count zeros that we had with the trailing zeros that we just found, and that is the code. This is a fairly intuitive question, but if you can find a better way to solve this, please let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.